Survivor Specialist John and McKenna are back for the final time this season. That is right, we are talking the finale of 45, but in the past. John, your thoughts?
Thoughts? Oh, man, I can't really contain my thoughts. I'm really excited to have this discussion today because Survivor 45 was a good season. It gave us a lot to talk about. Obviously, with 90-minute episodes, there's more content than we have ever had for a season of Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And the finale didn't disappoint, despite the fact that, I mean, you may argue there was like a very obvious winner in the end. Yeah. It was still an incredibly entertaining finale. And I'm really happy with how this season concluded.
Yeah, I think there was only an obvious winner once Julie left at 5. Like, if that plan happened, then I don't know who wins. But, yeah, so let's get into this episode. The first thing we want to talk about is this counting station advantage with the lockbox. This is a classic kind of Survivor challenge, more old school. The one that I remember it the most from is Panama, because you have Aris yelling, "Somebody call the ambulance, Terry's crying on the course." And like that is like stuck in my brain forever.
Yeah, it's an iconic moment. It's obviously, I think it's at the final 6 of that season.
Yeah.
And
or 5, one of the two.
5. It's towards the end of the season. Obviously, Terry has been winning absolutely everything up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. I mean, that is part of the reason why Panama is so entertaining. Is because of this whole, like, the Aris Terry dichotomy that we get in that season, and the competition between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Aris is able to present it in such a comical way there is just like great TV.
Yeah, exactly. And we also see it appear in Samoa and Cagayan. When we were looking at this, I was surprised we only saw it in 2 other seasons. It seemed like, again, with a lot of things with this podcast, it seems like such an old school staple, but I guess it's not.
I think what it comes down to is this is one of those things that there are variations on.
Yeah, like
and
the
like we see like
the station challenges.
Exactly.
It kind of feels like that too. Yeah.
Right. So we have those like variations on this challenge, but they aren't exactly this. They aren't exactly, hey, go out and find these things that you have to count them and bring those numbers back. Obviously, in like Cagayan, they are also using the numbers to decipher a lockbox, just like they did with this advantage. And it's fascinating because in those previous seasons, it's really hard to memorize all those numbers. First off, there were way more than 3 items most seasons. Most seasons were dealing with about 6 items, maybe more, maybe a little less. But there are so many more stations that they have to go to.
But it was so much closer. Like,
yes.
Here, they're running all across the beach. Like, I'm Jake. With, I cannot run, so I better get it right the first time and, like, stay at this station no matter how short of a time other people are going and, like, coming in and out. But, once again, Jake did our job for us, and his memorization tactic, freaking brilliant. Because that would be something that I could easily remember being like, all right, Tocantins, Philippines, 43. I know those winners. Easy.
Yeah,
that's like such a great memorization tactic of using Survivor winners. And I love that, we have this Survivor fan in Jake that he's like relating to, not old school stuff because Gabler's in there, but like he's relating to past Survivor where sometimes, we only see it in like the puzzle hacks or like I have this puzzle at home. So it's nice to see a callback on past Survivor and we see the clips and like it's just felt nice.
Yeah, but we're also at a point where this is kind of the first time you can really do that with the items that are being counted. Because remember, 43 is the last season this cast saw before they were on the island. They saw the beginning of 44, but they didn't know who won. So if there were 44 bamboo sticks there instead of 43, maybe Jake's just hooped.
Jake would have been like, he would have dubbed that line in afterwards.
Yeah.
It would have been like, Jam was 44.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it is a great mnemonic device to use. It's just so much easier. And like we've seen different memorization techniques before. I mean, obviously you have people who repeat things over and over again. It's one of the most common things that we see. We have Fishback in Token Genes memorizing 7 numbers at a time because that's why because of phone numbers. And people remember things in 3s and 7s. Also makes that convenient that there are 3 stations in this because we remember things in groups of 3. But this is the first time that we have seen it vocalized in the show that someone is actually using the show to remind them of things.
Yeah, that I just love that because we have had seasons where people don't know Survivor. They're just like here to have a good time and win some money. But like here we have a Survivor like super fan and use it like only a super fan would think, yes, I'm going to use the winners of the numbers that correlate to the items. So chef's kiss to Jake.
I also just want to like kind of harp on the fact that wasn't all we got from Jake. Like we didn't just get super fan Jake. There was so much more to Jake's story, which feels like an evolution of the storytelling at this point. With the new era that we're at a point where we have super fans, but so many. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone on this cast is a super fan. To some extent.
Tell that to Hannah.
Yeah, well, but sometimes you just forget people are on the cast. But the point is like Survivor fandom at this point in the game when they're casting isn't one of those like awkward things that they do with like an Eric Reichenbach in Fans for Favorites or someone like Cochran, right? Like it's not these people it's not that nerdy archetype that we used to previously get. Instead, it's just, hey, here is literally our entire cast, and they all love this show dearly.
Yeah, exactly. So Jake wins a challenge advantage. And so that brings us into the immunity challenge. And we wanted to talk about challenge advantages in an immunity challenge, but more importantly, challenge advantages that were purchased or obtained by someone and they did not win immunity. So first we're going to talk about Gabon. I actually just watched this episode today.
Perfect.
Yeah, so Corinne gets this challenge advantage where she can go to the next stage of the challenge. A lot of times with challenge advantages, it's the next stage in something. They get to bypass and just jump forward. So Corinne gets that and then doesn't wind up winning the challenge like Jake here in this season.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's really interesting because in the earlier seasons when we saw challenge advantages, they usually came up in the auction, right? That's usually when we saw them. I can't remember how Cochran gets his second challenge advantage in Caramoan. I remember how because he gets the first one at the auction. I don't remember how he gets the second, but for a long time, that's how you got challenge advantages, was at the auction. And then I think Edge of Extinction's the first time we don't see that happen because there's no auction and there's still challenge advantages in that season.
Yeah, they're from the Edge. Like the Edge person gets it and then gifts it. So Malcolm, I think Malcolm might have gotten it from like a reward, yes?
I can't fully remember. It's been a while since I finished the
research. But so Malcolm gets his challenge advantage where he can just reset because it's an endurance challenge. So he can reset the marble. So he doesn't wind up winning that challenge. And it also bites Dom in the butt in Ghost Island as well. Because he doesn't wind up winning.
This is a tough challenge.
Sorry, Wendell. Bites Wendell.
Wendell's the one who gets it. Yeah. And it's the exact same challenge. It's the exact same advantage because it's from the Ghost Island, obviously.
Yep.
This is a tough one because the challenges, like it's a challenge reset, But challenge resets are so difficult as an advantage because they only help you if you're actually good at the challenge.
Yes.
Like, if you suck at this challenge, and this is a tough challenge where you need steady hands. I mean, we've seen people who have steady hands, like Suri loses this challenge in Micronesia.
Yep.
Right? Like, it's a difficult one.
It's the marble with the extension.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know the challenge.
And if you aren't good at that inherently, like, a challenge reset just doesn't help you. Sure, it might make it so you're not last, but the likelihood of it getting you to win the challenge is so low.
Yeah. So in Edge of Extinction, like we were talking about, they kind of find advantages for the re-entry challenge on the edge. So the first one to get one is actually Chris Underwood, but Keith Sowell finds a challenge penalty and gives it to Chris Underwood to kind of combat his advantage. So he doesn't wind up winning. We see Rick Evans enter the game at that point. And then Aubrey gets to practice a part of the challenge. So we see another form of challenge advantage in practicing with Aubrey here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the practicing we've seen a couple of times in the past. We've seen it with Keith.
It helped him win.
Yeah, and it also helped Mike win in Worlds Apart as well, because he got to practice with the loved one and the blindfolded maze. It's really interesting. I don't know how much, like, practicing something, I don't know how much it helps. Like, some people, I think it'll help a lot, but I think a lot of people, it won't help all that much.
I think in the case of Keith's, because that was so tricky, he doesn't have that learning curve where everyone else has the learning curve. Then we see a slew of people in Winners at War because they purchase a challenge advantage with fire tokens and don't wind up re-entering in either portion, with Danny, Ethan, Natalie, Boston Rob, Parvati, Wendell, and Yule. They all purchased an advantage at either the first buy-in challenge or the second buy-in challenge.
And in this case, getting the advantage isn't so much of an advantage as negating a disadvantage, because so many people had access to the advantage. Yeah,
exactly. And then 42 and 43 are obtained basically the same way as Jake got his, with the big, massive scramble of here's a thing, go do it, with Lindsay and Carla, and both of them don't wind up winning the challenge that they played at.
Which is really interesting that this scramble for this challenge advantage that we've seen in 3 of these new era seasons doesn't pay off. Right?
So we have seen a challenge advantage played in, get ready everyone, Guatemala, Fiji, Gabon, Samoa, One World, Philippines, Caramon, San Juan del Sur, Worlds Apart, Game Changers, Ghost Island, Edge of Extinction, Winners at War, 41, 42, 43, and 45.
How do you feel about challenge advantages in general?
I love something like
an advantage that's used in the game of Survivor.
I love a challenge advantage. So, like I said, I watched the Corinne Gabon episode with the challenge advantage, and I think I like the auction if it only has a challenge advantage. No, no idle, no other advantage having to deal with votes, no, safety without power, none of that. Just a simple challenge advantage. I think there's so many things that could go wrong with a challenge advantage that it doesn't seem like such a big purchase in the auction, where like Kenny could let Corinne have it because there were other targets, but she could also mess up in the challenge.
I agree, but I also agree that like not all challenge advantages have been created equally.
True.
Right? Like the first challenge advantage we saw in Guatemala, Danny's ability to switch on the board challenge, was super powerful. She could literally corner herself and then target someone to get out of the game.
Yeah, true.
Right? Whereas like Corinne's gets you past a stage, which is huge when only a certain people get past a stage. It like gets you to a point where you're actually competing for immunity. We've talked about the 2 not advantage that Jason and Cochran got, which is an incredibly strong challenge advantage. And then we get Jake's challenge advantage, which is 2 of your numbers are up, which is huge. Like Jeff kind of downplayed how big this was, and it didn't look so big because Austin was able to get like completed himself very quickly.
If you're War Dog, that would be an amazing challenge advantage.
Yeah.
You only have to see one.
Yeah, and I mean we can't also forget Jake also forgot his key, which kind of negated that advantage.
Right. Exactly. And forgot the puzzle piece, that whole 9 yards. But I like a challenge advantage because it is not something to do with tribal council. It's one of those advantages that can be put into the game, and you can have, oh my gosh, all these challenges advantages or whatever. Not like in Winners at War where everybody could get a challenge advantage, but like you could throw in a pre-merge challenge advantage. You could throw in a post-merge challenge advantage. You could have it reoccur like an idol, but it's something that's kind of a little bit more minimal and like less super impactful to the vote specifically. Like there's so many advantages applying to the vote where I like this one does not.
It doesn't directly impact what can happen in a game, but it gives someone a fighting chance to save themselves, right? It's not like an idol, which can really like upset the game. It's more of a, hey, you might not be in a good spot. This can get you out of that so you can live another day and maybe get into a good spot.
Yeah, exactly. So immunity...
I also think, I'm going to talk one more thing about it though. I also think it's not as threatening as an idol because when you because even if you get a challenge advantage, use it and win immunity, I don't think it keeps everyone still targeting you as much as like an idol play does, right?
Right, because it's also like, oh, they only won immunity because of that challenge advantage. So yeah, the immunity challenge here, the only thing we need to note is the iconic, the one and only Michelle Fitzgerald puzzle. It only has been won by her in Co-Wrong and Winners at War. John, speaking of Co-Wrong, we're watching the finale over on the Patreon. So go watch the Co-Wrong finale.
Yeah, more like co-right because it's the only thing we could possibly be watching after this.
Exactly. So yeah, the Michelle Fitzgerald 3-tiered puzzle. I am very glad Austin kicked the puzzle, but once again, he is no Michelle, so sorry.
Well, now I have a tricky question for you, McKenna. Can we still call this the Michelle puzzle now that someone other than Michelle Fitzgerald has completed it?
If Austin wins it one other time, we can come back to this question. This is Michelle's puzzle and will forever be
I agree. Okay, perfect. Glad we're on the same page.
And so the reward, there was reward also with this immunity challenge, and it was a steak dinner. It appears also in Co-Wrong. And in the finale, they get a lovely steak dinner. Lunch, but anywho. And Island of the Idols, it's something that I remember vividly because Dean takes Nora and she's so excited for her steak. That's a mushroom. So steak rewards are big and it's fuel for the next challenge. And it comes with the choice of who do you want to fuel for the next challenge too.
I love a food reward at the end of the game because it is so much trickier. We see Austin kind of leveraging it. Austin takes Jake because he thinks Jake is going to tell him everything, which he was correct about, apparently. Never would have thought that would have going to happen. But it also made sense because Jake is the only one who would try to rally numbers. You can't take D because D is your guaranteed number. It's that entire conversation we had about who to take in a reward challenge earlier this season. And it is great watching it. But I like the fact that like a steak just holds that idea of like a lot of protein.
Steak to me would be the opposite of what I want to win.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
fair.
like game ending and has ended the game for several people. So
Yeah.
I would have like a corner. I say this now as someone who is not starving on an island. I would have like a corner of it, a piece, not the whole steak, because I don't want to die right before the finale.
That's fair. I think there are some people who think differently and would actually quite delight in it. Obviously, this time it was not accompanied by the protein boost that they get in the Korong finale.
Oh yeah, the protein
But
bar.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But we've seen steak. Obviously, we've seen steak rewards several times throughout Survivor's history. Kind of one of the more regular ones. Happens almost every season. There is a steak reward. Heck, even in
Especially
this,
if Outback is sponsoring.
exactly right. And the timing of it is different. But even in these new era seasons, we're still seeing steak rewards. So it's something that Survivor's not really willing to get rid of.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so then we get into this vote, and this vote is absolutely wild. And so that led us
Yes.
to think of plurality votes and how you can go home without having the majority. So like in this case it was 2 votes for Julie sent her home when there were 3 other votes floating around for other people.
This vote was so weird to watch. Um, I don't want to dunk on Katura because the internet has done more than enough of that.
Hey,
But
Sia more than made up for it.
yeah,
So
I know. But like that being said, I didn't understand this vote whatsoever because if what Katura was thinking is correct and she thought votes were going on to her, there's no way putting her vote on Julie would do anything to prevent her from going home.
yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
that's okay. And like, is this confusion that kind of makes this vote really interesting, despite the fact that Julie goes home here, who I thought was bringing like had this low key upside to be a winner. If D went here instead, Katura is making all the arguments for why it should be D instead of Julie, with the whole, we can't take a couple to the final 4 because they will
mhm,
take each other.
yep.
And when we look at these other plurality votes, I mean, obviously, the one that probably comes to mind is the Joe
Gretchen
Boot
from
in
Borneo.
or Gretchen from Borneo. Yeah, I was going to say the Joe Boot in Edge of Extinction, where the word plurality is actually used. But
See, the Borneo are trendsetters. Okay,
it's true.
they initiated the plurality vote at the merge.
But
I just had to
like
mention it before.
The Borneo boot, and the thing with these other plurality boots, like when we're looking at like the Zeke boot in Game Changer, the thing is when you look at a plurality boot, a lot of the times that plurality is caused because of a vote split.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the Joe boot is an intentional plurality. I think the best example of a plurality votes are your 3-2-1s, right? Your orchestrated 3-2-1s with
Mm-hmm.
like Suri in Panama on
Well,
the Courtney
Courtney's
boot.
boot, but
Yeah. But Suri still orchestrated it.
yeah.
And then the Brenda boot that we discussed earlier this season in Caramoan, those plurality votes tend to be incredibly specific. Like they're so thought out and planned. Even the Borneo boot, right, where you have a tight alliance voting together, which is why it ends up this way.
Mm-hmm.
This is not like that at all because it's just so random where all these votes are going. Yes, everyone is voting intentionally and placing
Mm-hmm.
their votes in an intentional spot, but it just seems like no one was on a page where they were thinking about numbers in this final 5 vote.
Yeah, yeah. I think the reason for me why Borneo sticks out so much, besides the fact that I love Borneo and will proclaim it to all that will listen, is because it's like a 4-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1. It like nobody doubles up pretty much. So it's
Yeah.
like it with this final 5 vote, it was 2-1-1-1. So for me, like the vote counts, I was like, there's no other option. But John said we could not do the merge of Borneo as our last.
But I'm also like 99% sure this is the only time in Survivor history where everyone eligible to receive a vote receives a vote.
Interesting.
We
could do the math on that.
I'm not 100% sure about some pre-merges, but I think post-merge, this is the only time it's ever happened.
So, are we ready to get into the next challenge?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So this next challenge, the final four, is kind of a hybrid of two. So we have this bowl challenge in One World, Blood versus Water. It's a Redemption Island duel. Millennials versus Gen X, and 43. Every time that it's not a duel, it is a final challenge. So we see it in those seasons, and then it has a structure that's similar to the dominoes challenge, where you have ropes that you have to navigate around. In Gabon, which was Corinne's advantage that we were talking about earlier. Redemption Island, it was a duel. Blood versus Water, also a duel. Ko-Rong, Game Changers, and Winners at War. So it was it was interesting to see it mixed, where we had the bowls on the kind of platform where you can trip over, where typically you just have to maneuver around. So in Ko-Rong, they had something similar in the finale, where they were on a spring wobbly platform, but the pedestals and balls that they were stacking were not connected. So this was almost like hybriding it with the dominoes.
Yeah, it's really interesting when they combine challenges like this. And we seem to be getting to that point in the new era where they're really doing that with these individual immunity challenges, where they're taking like portions from different ones and sticking them together. It's an innovative way to change things up, and I'm quite enjoying it so far. Also, this is the first time we've ever seen someone disqualified for breaking a challenge.
Yes. The only other disqualification that came to both of our minds that we very much want to forget is Ben in Samoa, where he DQs himself for kicking people in the shins.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is only the second DQ in Survivor history, which is actually kind of impressive considering there have been 45 seasons.
Yeah, exactly. So with this structure, they actually don't have to maneuver the pole around like a little like maze thing, which they typically have to do in other seasons. Then, there is that variant that's in Ko-Rong where it's balls and pedestals to stack. So I like this version of the challenge. It is maddening. I would have gone crazy by now. But it was so intense watching Dee and Jake like fast high step it through the challenge, and I felt like both of them are going to drop it at any point and trip.
Yeah, it was really impressive. It's really impressive Dee was able to do this without ever dropping her bowls.
And she's so little, like high stepping over that, like big props to her.
I was worried her big toe was going to get in the way.
Her toes hung on and gave her that victory. But what really got me emotional through this challenge was them playing the theme song. So luckily this season we got the theme song back and the opening sequence and everything, but without that we wouldn't really know Ancient Voices all that much. So to have it playing in this last challenge was very like, it hit me.
Borneo. Like, it's very Borneo. It's harkening back to this old school stuff, which is, again, like, there's so many things in this finale, and like we haven't even talked about all of them yet, that harken back to an old era. And it just really goes to show production's listening. Like Phil said it on the podcast on Wednesday. production is out there listening to the things that people are saying on the internet about Survivor.
Mm-hmm. So that was a challenge, and now we're going to go into fire making. So we talked about fire making and kind of all its iterations last year, but we kind of want to talk about, is it worth it anymore? Like, people have been talking about, like, it doesn't matter as a game move. You can still win or lose if you make fire or not make fire. So is it really a move? Like, Jake wanted to have something for his resume with making fire. Is that a move, or is that a resume builder?
I don't think so. I think it can't be a resume builder when it is something in the game that inherently will happen no matter what. And I think that's kind of what this forced fire making has come to at this point, where, yes, you can control who goes in. You can ask for control who goes in. There are some seasons where it sounds like it's super important, like 43. There are some seasons where it wasn't important, like 44. And when you take that into consideration, is this doing what forced fire making intended to in the first place? Because from the sounds of a certain podcast, Jeff Probst doesn't seem to think so anymore.
So, I think the only way fire making can be worth it is if, say D didn't win that final immunity, Jake wins the final immunity, and he takes out D. I feel like there's a certain, like, merit if the perceived front runner doesn't win immunity and you give up immunity and then beat them. Like, that's the only way I can see it working. Not if the perceived front runner doesn't win immunity and you just send someone in to try and, like, do your dirty work. I feel like the only way that I could see it as a resume builder is if, Jake were to take D on in fire and beat her.
And obviously, like, Chris Underwood set that tone in Edge of Extinction. Natalie was chastised for not doing that in Winners at War. But we saw Heidi do that last season, and it didn't pay off.
But there was, Jam Jam was I feel like a front runner also. Like, I think Heidi was kind of drawing a little dead with the people she was up in. So, like,
right.
I feel like D was just out there, and, like, if she's gone, I feel like it's a lot more of an open playing field, and I don't think Austin steamrolls.
Do you think that, just based on the way that the final votes broke down in this episode, D was seen as the front runner by the people on the island at the time? And the people in the game? Like, did they see D as a clear winner?
I mean, Austin pulled 3 votes, which isn't bad. But I feel like if D's not there, there are 5 other votes up for grabs.
Sure. Yeah,
like,
I agree with that.
Whether Austin gets, like, 2 more to win or not, like, that's another story. Like, if Katurah was there, could she pull some because of the way she speaks?
It did seem like everyone seemed to think Katurah was a big jury threat. So maybe Katurah was the person you wanted to take out in fire.
So it all comes down to jury perception, but I feel like fire making does not make sense anymore unless it is that specific circumstance.
I just want to go back to a point where fire making is a tie break.
Like in Co Wrong? Where we're watching, on Patreon?
Yeah, like in the Co Wrong finale, because it's so much more eventful. Because you go into this vote, and it's so much. I think it's more impressive. It's less impressive if you're like, hey, put me into fire making, and more impressive if you convince someone to vote with you to get yourself in fire making.
Yeah, exactly. So I was doing some research for our good friend Alex Trias over on Reality After Show, and he was like, all right, I want to see what the positions are between all of the people in Final Tribal Council with the fire making in the new era. And so the people sitting on the left side 3 out of 5 times have won. But the bigger thing is if you have a blue flag, you're winning. Every time there has been a blue flag as your rope goes up in the new era, they win.
Fascinating. When you say the left, do you mean the left from
your view
perspective? So from us looking onto them.
It would be John, you, if we're looking at our screens right now.
Okay. Good to know. I need to know. Our listeners need to know this in case they go on and have to make fire.
Well, technically they like pull for seats because remember with Dom and Wendell, Wendell was like, I don't want orange, and with Angela and Wendell, and then Angela was like, I don't care, and then lost. So
it's important. Where you sit in fire making is important. Clearly.
Yeah. So now we are going to the breakfast, and this was such a joy for me because we finally got a little taste of rites of passage. I love the rites of passage, and I think it is a great way to commemorate your fallen tribe mates, castaways, and pay tribute to them and be like, they had to go for you to get here. And I just like the look back on that and be like, you're right. Like, I might have gotten here by some form of luck, strategy, etc., but thank you for going before me so I could be here. And I'm glad we got a little bit of that with just doing the jury, and then we kind of integrated the jury speaks segment that usually comes out as bonus content.
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing it in the main finales for the new era. They've been doing it. They've been getting bits and pieces. We don't get every single juror. I was actually really happy to see kind of what every single juror was saying about these castaways going into Final Tribal Council. Rites of Passage is one of those things that you don't realize how much you miss it until it's gone. Our last one was in Redemption Island, or was it Redemption Island the first season without it?
Ooh, maybe without it because of Redemption Island?
That would make sense because it was the boot order in that season is very weird. But I remember at the time, Jeff said, I just don't think this is a part of Survivor anymore. I don't think it's necessary. But I think it hit people really hard last night when we got it. I know myself, I was like, wow, this is a rites of passage. And yes, it's only the jury they're talking about. But still, it felt so good having that reflection and like seeing what the players thought of everyone. And I think it really helps to punctuate the theme of Survivor, that you have to vote people out and then convince them to vote for you to win. So having the players ruminate on that at the end, right before Final Tribal Council, it also gives us a break between like the fire making and Final Tribal Council. Like it's a good break to have in an episode. And I was just really happy to see it again.
Yeah, me too. It was a great segment and very happy for 90-minute episodes now. So then we go Final Tribal Council. It's not a 7-1 vote.
For the first time in the new era, it is not a 7-1 vote. And how exciting is that? It's so fantastic to see that. I did not think Austin was going to get 3 votes going into this Final Tribal Council or after all those speeches, because, man, he did not look great after Dee said that she had told Julie. But it also leads me to believe, even with 90-minute episodes, we didn't see all of Austin's game.
Yeah. Because I think he made some relationships that we didn't fully see. So,
but it's fantastic. It's fantastic to have variance in this. It's good to go into this and not think, okay, someone's going to win 7, someone's going to get like the pity second place vote, and someone gets last place. I'm really tired of 0 vote finalists. In final threes, we've had 28 seasons. We've 29 seasons now, and we've had a zero finalist in 24 of them. So I would really like it if that wasn't the case moving forward, but it's okay. You know what?
Mhm.
It's okay. Jake totally deserved a vote. Jake was fantastic. Easily my favorite character from this season. As someone I was kind of low on going into the season.
Yeah. So speaking of that, John, I just pulled this up now as you were talking, but preseason for this cast over on the Patreon, we did a kind of Survivor in the Past cast assessment. So we related these people that were coming onto the island with past castaways. So I kind of want to run through who we thought was gonna be each person. So Austin, we thought was gonna be Fabio.
You know what? I think that's pretty accurate.
I think it tracks.
Yeah, I think it worked out. Yeah, he didn't win the game though, so come on, Austin, pull it together.
Brando was gonna be Danielle DiLorenzo.
Why did we say that?
Observant, over analytical, wants to be in a pair.
I mean, those were true.
Yeah.
It still seems like a weird comparison for us to make.
Listen, go watch the Patreon. Brandon Donlin was going to be Eric Reichenbach. Kind of.
I mean, maybe like end of Karamoan.
I feel like almost was Micronesia because of the idol incident and the ladder incident. Like they're kind of one of the same.
Kind of like works. Kind of works.
Bruce was gonna be Edge of Extinction David Wright.
Nope. Sorry, Bruce. Love you, but that one didn't check out.
D. Angie from Palau.
Kind of,
because she was like tribe oriented. When push comes to shove, she'll get it done. Unsuspecting challenge asset.
I think so. She just like didn't have the unfortunate part of Angie where her tribe lost every single immunity challenge. And she had the opposite of that, where she went to a single tribal council pre-merge and someone quit at that tribal council. Dee did not have to write a vote until the fake merge.
Yeah, exactly. Drew, Stephen Fishback.
Like in some sense, kind of. Especially like what he was talking about like reading and stuff in the after show, definitely. I feel like he was a little more assertive than Fishback on the island.
Yes, I'd say so too. Emily was Eliza.
At first, like in the first premiere, she was.
I'd say this is decently accurate.
I don't think Eliza ever got to a point where she could win like Emily could.
True. Yes. Okay. But Eliza did get so deep in the game. Like,
it's true.
I think Emily's winner potential is kind of likening to how deep Eliza got in Vanuatu, and you don't remember that she gets 4th in that season.
Yeah, that's very true.
Hannah was gonna be Hannah from Millennials versus Gen X.
No, Hannah from Millennials versus Gen X made it to the finale, and Hannah in this season quit in the first episode.
Jake is the absolute opposite of Stephanie LaGrossa. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Though, actually, Palau, Stephanie LaGrossa was America's sweetheart.
Yeah.
So
don't tell me that means if Jake comes back, he's going to be the worst.
He better not.
Jake, you can't do that to us. Don't do that to us.
Jay, it was Alexis from Micronesia. She goes out and you kind of forget about her.
Yeah, kind of feels more like an Alexis Maxwell, though, if we're comparing to an Alexis, right?
True. Julie lived up to Tina. I'm just going to say it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Julie lived up to our Tina expectations.
Yeah, she was smart. She was savvy. She made fantastic social connections. She understood the game completely and knew what she had to do. And she had that little bit of that little bit of vengeance in her too that we've seen from Tina.
Caleb is Tommy Sheehan, which I think is pretty accurate.
I would say so. He just wasn't as good as managing his threat level as Tommy Sheehan was.
Katurah, we said she was going to be Laurel from Ghost Island, and I feel like she's the opposite in the sense of where Laurel was stuck to like Wendell, where Katurah wanted Bruce out, and like that was her storyline where she wanted Bruce out, where Laurel was like, I'm going to stick by Wendell. So it was like kind of like the exact opposite.
Yeah, I really hate that we got that Katurah wants Bruce out so bad storyline. I would have preferred just like an actual Katurah storyline instead.
Yeah, I agree. Kelly was gonna be Michaela Wingle.
Oh, Kelly's so much better than Michaela Wingle. And like Michaela Wingle was fine, but Kelly is just an absolute boss. Like there's no other way to put it.
I think if Brandon wasn't on the season, Michaela could have been like Kelly.
Sure. I mean, I guess she gets blindsided just like Michaela did.
Hey. Kendra being Haley Ford, I feel like checks out.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I think she may have voted on vibes in the final tribal council, so
facts. So Sifu was Cliff Robinson, and that is nope. Everyone wanted Sifu out.
Yep. I don't even know who I would compare Sifu to now. Sifu's just Sifu. He'll say it to himself. Yeah.
Exactly. Sean was Brian Corridon, Never in My Days.
Nope.
And lastly, Sabaya is Rourke.
No, Sabaya's. Oh.
No, Sabaya's
I'm pretty high on Rourke, but I think Sabaya just had so much more
feist
to her. Yeah.
Yep. But she did not just go randomly out. So hey.
No, instead we got a beautiful, beautiful send off for Sabaya instead.
Alrighty, everyone. So we'll see you over on the Patreon for our final rewind of the season. But look forward to more off-season content from John and I over on the Patreon. And we'll see you soon. John, do you know what's up?
I do know a little bit what's up. First and foremost, if you haven't already, go back and watch Wednesday's recap. It's Alexa's last official recap. She'll probably be back in the future at some point, but it's her last official podcast. Make sure you listen to it. Make sure you like it. Like, get it out there for everyone to see, because everyone should listen to it. It was a great recap of the finale. It gets kind of emotional. Good listen, for sure. For everything else that's coming up, and there's a lot coming up. We have a lot of... The Patreon is getting a complete revamp. If you go on to Patreon now, you can kind of get an idea of what's to come. If you want a better idea of what's to come, Phil will be releasing a video on this Sunday, December 24th, that is going to tell everyone what to expect from the specialist moving forward. And it's a lot. There is so much content being made for everyone about Survivor, about movies, about everything left and right. Patreon has never been more worth it. Patrons are going to get I think it's like 8 to 12 extra episodes a month now. It's at a very exciting time for us, and we're so excited to reveal to you on Sunday just what's going to happen. But other than that, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter,
Instagram, TikTok,
Twitter. Instagram, everything. Become a patron. There's so much out there. Just because it's the off season doesn't mean we're going away. In fact, we might be coming at you with so much more than ever.
Yeah.
We look forward to it, and we'll see you all in the new year.
Goodbye, everyone.